Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Thanks for joining me today in a new video. So today I have a time lapse for you of a drawing that I finished in June. And this will be a horse in grayscale with pastel pencils, so just black and white and gray on pastelmat, which is a lovely project. I had a lot of fun with this. It was for Patreon for the $4 members, so you can find it fully in real time over there. It's about 4 hours. And of course I have tons more real-time tutorial projects available on there. So if you're interested in joining the growing club, have a look at the links in the description. And you can find this tutorial library over on my website, where you can see a full overview of everything that is currently available and some more information as well. So thanks for considering to join. Let's head over to this time lapse. So let's get started with that. I am using stabilo carbothello pastel pencils and a white Faber-Castell Pitt pastel pencil over on 12 by 12 inches pastel mat, and the color is light blue. It does look more like gray, but it has a slight blue hue to it, and I figured that this would be a really nice undertone to work on for the grayscale pastel drawing, because it does give the drawing a little bit of a blue hue, and I really like that. So yeah, that is the materials, and I'm getting started with a sketch. So this tutorial was focused on freehand sketching, and drawing horses is not that easy, so I spent a lot of time on the sketch and tweaking little things until I was happy with it. And of course I explain everything in the tutorial as well. I started out with the top line of the neck because I wanted to make sure that it would fit on the paper, and then the bottom line of the neck and the chest, and then I sketched the head based on that. But on the head itself I also made many different adjustments before I was happy with it. So the most important thing is that we have that jawline in place and that the nose is the right size. You will see the reference pop up on screen soon. It actually has 2 horses on it, but I decided to only draw this one because I felt that the position and the coloring of this one was really nice, really beautiful to draw. So I decided to go for just one horse. And I also sketched in the eye pretty quickly and the nostrils and mouth line pretty quickly. So when I do the sketch, I try to not go into too much detail right away, because I usually do a lot of adjusting when I do the coloring. So I just make sure that the overall proportions of everything is correct, but then I do all the little tiny adjustments when I do the coloring itself. I did decide to place down the eye quite a lot because it was too high up at the start, so I did adjust the placement of the eye, but the rest of all the adjustments I did during the coloring process. And I also decided to give the background a little bit of a tone to cover up all the wrong sketch lines. For the background I used a mix between 110 and 722. So I only used black, white, then 110, which is very light gray, and then 722, which is slightly darker, then 724 and 726. So that's the only colors that I use for this drawing. So when I was happy with the overall proportions, I decided to draw in the eye with black because it was very dark on the photos. So I went in with black right away, and I did place it down a little more compared to the sketch lines. So I only use the sketch lines as a guide, but I keep looking at the photo and I keep adjusting based on that. And when the eye was done, the most difficult part of the drawing was done, because the sketch is definitely the most difficult. So that's why I think it's so important to practice this from now and then. I also have a cat and a dog in the same style for the same $4 membership, so you can also practice those if you want to. And this one is definitely the most difficult so far. So then I decided to start with the face and just do some base layering. So for this drawing, it was very important to put the right contrasts in. So the right values, the right contrast. The jawline had to be really dark, and also the nose line underneath the forelock had to be really dark as well, so it becomes an interesting and realistic picture. My goal for this one was not to make it hyper realistic, but I wanted to leave it rather loose for my style and rather rough looking, but I did want the right amount of contrasts in there and just a little bit of detail. So I did the darkest lines with black, and then most of the base layering I did with 722 and 724, and then the nose was a tiny bit lighter, so I did the base layer with that with 722. And I didn't use much white in this drawing. I only used white for the very lightest details and for some detailing on the white fur. And then I moved on to the forelock. So he has quite curly hair and also very dark. And for the forelock, it's quite important to not draw each individual hair, but focus more on the dark shadows in between the strands of hair, and then lighten up the lighter strands of hair. But I drew very little detail on the forelock and almost no individual hairs, just lights and darks, and then finally highlighted some of the hairs that were catching a lot of light, highlighted those with a tad of white. And then for the ears, so the ears weren't that hard to do. I just did a base layer with the 726 that was the darkest gray and sketched out all the different shapes in the ears, and then did some black for the inside of the ear and some highlighting, but that's it. I finished the right ear when the area on the neck was done, the area around it. So I just sketched out all the outlines of the ear and then moved on to the fur area on the neck, because I felt it was a little bit easier to finish the ear after the black fur around it was done. So there were also some long strands of hair flipping over towards this side and covering up the ear a little bit, so I decided to go around those strands with my base layer for the fur, leave open those strands and then fill those in individually. And for the fur again, it was so important to focus on the contrasts. I'm not really focusing on drawing all the hairs, but just making sure to get that shiny effect in there by highlighting the parts of the neck that catch a lot of light, and then making all the shadow areas really dark. So instead of looking at the details, I am looking at light and dark shapes. And the same go for the mane. So for the mane, I am making sure to separate all the strands of hair with black, filling in all the shadows with black, and then doing a little base layer with the dark gray 726. And then it was quite easy to highlight the lighter strands of hair with the lighter colors like 722, and then a little bit of white in the end. Alright, so moving on to the strands of hair that are flipping over to this side and overlapping the ear, so I could see some little details in those strands of hair. So I wanted to make sure that that hair also had some detail in it. Underneath the strands of hair, I put some black to make sure that they would stand out from the neck. And then continuing in the same way. So the neck is actually round, and this horse is quite muscular, so you really have to look at all the different muscles in the neck and follow that flow of the muscles when you do the base layering. So I made sure to follow the curve of the muscle and the neck in my base layering, and also blend in the same way, because that really helps creating the 3D effect in the neck, and also of course making sure that all the shadows are in the right place. Making all the dark neck muscles black right away, and I filled in the rest with 726, and that creates a really nice dark base layer, and from that you can start adding the lighter details. So I make sure to start off a little darker than what I want the fur to be in the end, both for black fur and white hair. I say fur all the time, but someone said that horses actually have hair and not fur or coats, so I'm not sure. So I didn't add too many details in the black fur, just lighten up some of the hairs there in the neck, especially in the bottom area of the neck, and then I moved on to the white fur right away. So the white fur was really fun because it's really nice and white in the photo. The mane there, the white mane, are a tad darker, so I decided to sketch out the basic shape of the mane first and then go around it with 110 and fill in all the white fur with the base layer, and then I filled in all the white mane individually. And for the white fur or the white mane, I decided to go for 722 as a base layer, so the slightly darker gray, so they would stand out from the white fur. Because I didn't want the white mane to blend in with the white coat, I really wanted it to stand out. And then because I started off with gray for the gray coats, I could do some highlighting with the white. So I never start out with a white for a white fur or white hair. I always start out with gray so I can do the highlighting with the white. And then moving on to the detailing in the white mane. So again, because I started off with gray, I could highlight all the different strands of hair with the even lighter gray, the 110, and white. And I also filled in some of the shadows in between the strands with 726. And then some extra highlighting with white, and then that area was also done. So then I could continue with doing some detailing on the head and moving on to the chest as well. So the chest, I didn't spend too much time on the chest because I didn't want too much detail in there, because I wanted the main attention of the viewer's eye to be on the head and the mane, not necessarily on the chest. So I just made sure that the whole chest was pretty dark. I did do some highlighting on the chest, but not too much. I just wanted it to be nice and dark. And then you could see some of the front legs, and I also filled those in nice and dark. So that was it basically. So then I decided to do a little bit more detailing and just do some tiny little highlights. Also, I filled up the background all the way towards the edges, and I also gave the horse some whiskers, because horses actually do have whiskers. You couldn't see them in the photo, but for some nice extra detail I decided to add some whiskers on the nose. And I also picked my black Cretacolor chalk pastel because that one is even blacker than the black stabilo one. So sometimes when I do black animals, I like to pick that one just to make some of the black extra deep in some of the shadows. So I also picked the Cretacolor pastel, but it's optional, you don't have to use that. And then after some final details, this drawing was finished. So it did take me 4 hours, a little bit longer than 4 hours, and I had loads of fun with it. I love drawing horses. It's been a long time since I did a horse, so I enjoyed it, and I hope you liked it too. So let me know what you think of it. Don't forget to like this video if you like it, and if you're considering becoming a patron, thank you so much, and then I will see you in the next video.